And we're on. Hello and welcome to podcast episode 104 of Rope-a-Dope Boxing. Today, my wingman, Mr. Holland, can't be with us. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see. But I've upgraded, should I say. Last couple of weeks. Well, I have. I've upgraded. So the last couple of weeks, I had Mr. Liam Tully on. I refer to him as...
Definitely an upgrade.
I refer to him as the boxing guru. I had Mr. Sam Walker on, who I referred to as Mr. Boxing Bible. Your boys. I was going to refer to you as the Ring Magazine champ, but obviously I watch a lot of your content and you ain't a fan of belts. So I just thought I'd leave it alone. I just call you the main man, the main guy of Jay's Fight Talk podcast, Mr. Jay Murphy himself. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm honoured. I will caveat, it's not that I'm not a fan of belts. I'm a fan of bulldust belts and add-on belts, and I just think they drag it out for their 3%. I would be happy if there was just the 4 belts and nothing else. No interims, no emeritus, no recess. You get 90 days to defend, or at least schedule a defence, and we move on. I would be happy for the federations and associations to get together and have one collective championship. So to say I'm not a fan of the belts is not necessarily true. I'm not a fan of how the belts are run and organised, and the consortium, the monopoly that is the championships.
That's fair enough, mate. I think we champion the same thing on here. We kind of just recognise the Ring Magazine as well. You've just said about 3%. Yeah. Obviously, no sanctioning fees with the Ring Magazine belt as well. So I know I listen to a lot of your stuff with the boys, and you do your own bits and pieces with Liam Tully and that. I know you've had a good weekend. A very good weekend in terms of the second fight.
I had a good weekend. I dropped lucky, didn't I, on Saturday night? I dropped lucky. Unlucky, I've never been as happy and as sad I went from one extreme to another. Obviously, I was over the moon for myself to come quids in, but I was gutted. I don't like to see a fight end like that. The real winner didn't have his hand raised. It ended in controversy, which I'm not a fan of. I want a decisive win. I take no glory in winning that bet. I bet on a random outside off chance, and every now and again, anybody that knows me knows I love a draw. Missed the tank draw, by the way. Fell asleep and didn't press bet, but yeah, gutted but happy for myself. But it's not about me. It's about the two guys that lay their lives on the line in a pair of shorts and a pair of gloves and a gum shield for the rest of us as entertainment. So yeah, it was a strange one. Was Saturday night.
Definitely. So we'll leave that one till last. Obviously, we'll start with a bit of controversy over in the States, and then we'll jump at the end back to Belfast. Obviously, the fight there Jay's referring to is Paddy Donovan against Lewis Crocker. If you're new to the channel, guys, like, share, and subscribe, and we will crack on with the review. As I said, we'll jump over to the States. For anybody that's got an audio feed, I've written on the screen, Tank takes the knee. That's clean talk about round 9 when the guy takes the knee against Lamont Roach Jr. So Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr. for the WBA lightweight title. I think a lot of us, not just me, yourself, and a lot of the boxing community had the same kind of narrative going in with this one. This would be the Tank show, as in I said it'd be like a carbon copy of the Frank Martin fight. I thought that he would start slow, let Lamont Roach have success, pocket success, win rounds, look good. And then he's got this habit as looking over to his corner, having a word with his corner and saying, "What, do we go now? Do we finish it now? Let's go now."
Crawford does similar. Sort of sparring mode. Set the traps, have a look. He's not worried about getting knocked out. And as you said, it's a carbon copy. It's a blueprint on how Tank fights. And I sat watching it, waiting for him. I thought, right, he'll do it now. He'll do it now. He'll do it now. He'll do it now. And then the weird knee, when he took the knee, I was absolutely dumbfounded. I thought, what's he doing? No way is he hurt. Because if you watch it, I think he takes a right hand just before, but he sort of takes it solid, backs off a little bit, regroups, and then takes the knee. And I'm thinking, is that because you don't really see that in boxing, but you see it in MMA a lot, where you get delayed reaction.
It's a good 4 to 5 seconds there, Jay. It's a good 4 to 5 seconds before he actually takes the knee.
I have actually seen that happen before. There was an MMA fight between Edson Barbosa and Shane Burgos, and he sort of whacked him. and they separated. Then Burgos goes to re-engage, and you sort of see you can see that internally he's gone, shit, I'm hurt here, and he sort of backs off looking for the cage, but he's too far away, and he's sort of wobbling all over, and he just falls down, and he inevitably gets jumped on and stopped. For a split second, I thought, Tank's hurt there. He ain't got his legs underneath him, but then he sort of looks to the ref, then looks to Lamont, then looks to his corner, then walks to his corner, puts his head through, they start wiping this grease off his eyes. And then the ref comes over and speaks to him, and they're sort of having a jovial chat about it rather than the ref taking charge. You know, the ref's in there to take charge. Do as I say. You know, I shout, break, you break, etc., etc. But it was like he was chatting with his pal or a member of his team. It was just one of the weirdest interactions I've ever seen in a boxing match. And I've watched boxing for nigh on 40 years now, and I've never seen anything like that where a point wasn't taken or a count wasn't given. It was, not by the rules for me. I'm not the oracle on the rules, but I've never seen that happen before and there not be either a point deduction or a count. It was strange, very strange.
It was like he was caught in a moment as well. I mean, Steve Willis is an experienced referee. He's refereed so many fights. He's obviously he's famous to like so much the casual fan as well, the way he looks and things like that. But
it's good ref.
It's like he is a good ref. Well, you know, he's only human. He does make mistakes, but it's kind of like he stopped, and his initial reaction was probably to deduct a point. Yeah, but he like got stuck in a sliding doors moment, thinking, this is Tank Davis. This is a PBC card. He's supposed to win. What do I do? And he's had a quick think of it. Well, just don't do it again. And obviously, he's probably gone back and thought about, I shouldn't have done that. I've got to do it by the book. And it hasn't. And you think about it, Jay. It was a majority draw on the night. That gets rewarded as a 10-8 round. He wins the fight by majority decision. Yeah.
For me, that's the swing. You know,
that wins him the fight.
Yeah, that wins the fight for me. You know, we have a new WBA world champion, and you know, Tank is not the Tank that we all thought he was in the lead up to the fight. It's I'm not going to say it stinks of an inside job, but it's as though Willis daredn't take the point. Like That's he was worried about what had happened if he took the point in terms of would he work for PBC again? You know, because we all know referees don't get paid as such, but they get taken to dinner and they get put up in a nice suite, and you know, so it's good to be in with certain promotions. We know that. We know what goes on. I've been inside boxing, not just on the outside, on the periphery looking in. I've been behind the curtain, so I know what goes on. And I'm talking on a smaller scale, that type of thing goes on. So I dread to think what goes on higher up the proverbial ladder. But it just didn't feel right. It doesn't sit right with me. And I think we've seen statements from them both today. I think Lamont Roach has already signed I think there was a rematch clause regardless anyway. And I know from Lamont Roach that he has already signed the rematch part of his contract. Whether Tank has done that yet, because he did say in the aftermath that his next fight wouldn't be a rematch with Lamont Roach. He said something like, I have to fight him again, but I won't be fighting him next. What that means, I don't know. I've got a funny feeling we're going to see Tank versus Loma. That's for the name on his record. We know what Tank does. He brings fighters up from the weight divisions below.
And he trains them,
and drains them and beats them up. This time it didn't work out for him. He didn't sound like he wanted the rematch, to be honest. I think we're going to get it forced upon us, or he's maybe going to test himself again. He's underestimated Lamont Roach, hasn't he? Definitely, as we all did. Definitely. I think we all did. I did. You know, I expected him to do, as we said earlier on, muddle through for a bit. Not muddle, but sort of ponder through, sparring mode, and then just take him out when he decided to. Didn't go to script, though, did it?
No, it didn't go to script. And I think we've got to give the credit as well to Lamont Roach. I've got to be honest. Absolutely. When you see certain fighters and you know the name and you've kind of got an idea of how they fight, you go into the archives and you have a look at how they fight. And before the predictions, I think most of us have gone and had a look at Lamont Roach. Think, he's good. He's a champion at the weight below. Throws a nice few shapes. Not really that powerful. You know, he's got fast hands, quick feet, but he's going up a level now. He's not just going up a weight. He's going up a level against Tank Davis. You know, he's in most people's pound for pound top tens. You know, he does weight drain fighters, and you have a look at his CV, you have a look at his resume. There's some good names on there, but then obviously you delve into they were from the weight below, there was some hydration clause, all that kind of thing in it. But I was impressed at how well he boxed. You said that going into after round 9, you think right now Tank's he's possibly drawing or losing the fight. He's not clocking up enough rounds. Right, round 10. Now we go. Nope. Yeah. Roach Jr. He's still boxing away, scoring shots, moving well, having Tank following around him. 11. Let's go now. Yeah. 12. You need it now.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
And it's like he couldn't figure him out as well, Jay. And he was having so much success on Tank, the latter end of the fight. I think this doesn't usually happen, but he is only human, and he is allowed an off night. So
he's allowed an off night, but I think we are sort of not giving Lamont Roach his flowers. I've watched it 3 times now, 3.5. I fell asleep watching it the other night, and if you look at, so I'm sort of a geek. I like to watch footwork and positioning and things like that.
Yeah.
And what you'll watch with Roach is a couple of times Tank does go all out, try to knock him out. And what Lamont Roach were doing, he were just moving half an inch maybe back. So he's not taking a full shot. So he's staying in range, but he sort of leans back and then shuffles his feet back just ever so. It's really subtle.
Yeah, just enough.
Just enough. Have you ever seen Mayweather? I think it was, it might have been the McGregor fight, but I think he did it with DeMarcus Corley as well, or somebody like that, Mayweather, back in the day. There's a slow-mo shot, where a punch comes in and the glove leather literally touches Mayweather's nose. It's just far enough away where the leather creases.
Yeah.
Just that. And that's what Roach were doing. His judgment of distance is up there for some of the best that I've seen recently. I'm not going to say ever because, I don't know enough about him moving forward. We'll have to see what he does after this. Whether he had the night of his life and Tank had the worst night of his life. Yeah, maybe it was just a meeting of times, the right time, right place, right time. We won't know that until we see them both box again. Because I don't think Tank's got long left. I am in the camp that I don't think we'll see him fight over in Saudi, and I think he's got 3 or 4 fights left and he's done. He'll walk away from the sport. I don't think he's bothered. It is literally about money for Tank, I believe. I don't think it's about legacy. In
that sense, though, you say about money, and I agree. In that sense, you think he would go over to Saudi, wouldn't you? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, you say that, but the money that he gets from PBC, I don't think he's that much of a star that Saudi would pay him that much more. And the fights they're going to want to see him in are fights
competitive.
Risky fights.
Yeah.
For not that much money. That's the way I'm looking at it. It took a lot for him to get Canelo, didn't it? A lot. Because ultimately, he gets paid shitloads anyway. Heck of a lot. One of the biggest paid, if not the biggest, paychecks in boxing. Tank, in and around his weight division, is probably the best paid. I can't think of anybody else that can command the type of money he gets. He's also PBC's golden boy, so to speak.
Boy,
poster boy.
Yeah.
So I don't think he'd get that much more. Not enough to justify him making the decision to leave PBC and go across. I think he's 3 or 4 fights left and done. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him done end of next year, 26. I don't think Tank will be around. I think he's ready for off.
He keeps talking about retirement, doesn't he? But you don't know how true it is. Obviously, Tyson Fury said it.
For me.
No, he does. His body language is odd this week.
Yeah,
he looks a bit too relaxed. Have you noticed the way that he talks as well? His speech. It's kind of like, I'm not going to be offensive and say he sounds dopey. He just sounds like he's stoned, mate. Sometimes it doesn't look like he's. I'm not going to say he isn't taking camp seriously or anything. He looks a figure of health. He looks in shape, but he just looks like. I thought he kind of treated Lamont Roach as an opponent on Saturday night rather than a contender, and it kind of backfired
with a bit of disdain. I think. Do you know what it is with Tank? I think he's trying to sucker us all into this. I'm a change guy because we know he's a bit of a scumbag on the out. He's done some nasty things, hasn't he? Domestically and things, and it's all documented. I'm not saying anything that's rumor or suggestion or innuendo.
It's kind of like the modern Broner, isn't it? I know people were saying that, but
and they were part of the same camp, weren't they?
Yeah.
So he's going along those lines, and I think the reason, just going back to what you're saying about the way he sounds, I think he's slowing it down. I think he's trying to think about what he says a little bit more, and he's speaking a lot softer. If you notice, he's got a softer tone. He's trying to be like. Do you remember the other day he said, "Oh, I don't want to tell you what you do. I'm shy. Your mum's here." Tank's never been bothered about.
Yeah.
I mean, he's from the ghetto. His mum's ghetto. His mum was. It's well documented. His mum was a crack addict. I don't think his father's ever been around. Him and his siblings brought themselves up. So Tank's never been shy about effing and jeffing in front of anybody, let alone Lamont Roach Jr.'s mother. And all of a sudden now he's, yes, ma'am, Mr. Respectful. Do you know what I mean?
Turn it in, Tank.
Turn it in, Tank. We know who you are. And I think he's possibly dulling it down a little bit for dramatic effect. But the kid's been taking headshots since he was about 7, 8 years old. He could be a little punchy. We don't know, because that performance, if we then found out that he was punchy, that would tell us exactly why he couldn't get away from shots, because he was getting hit with shots that ordinarily we'd never see him get caught with. You know, Lamont Roach didn't do anything spectacular, and I don't mean that being disrespectful of his performance, but he didn't do anything revolutionary or groundbreaking. He just did the basics pretty well.
He looked hurt as well, didn't he, at times?
Yeah.
Tank looked hurt. Not, I wouldn't say he was bugged or he looked vacant, but he did look hurt at times. He sort of looked at him to say, yeah, stunned. You shouldn't be landing that on me. I'm Tank Davis. But as I said, we watched round after round. Is he going to do it now? Is he going to do it now? And he just never came. Yeah,
just waiting for the inevitable, and the inevitable never came to fruition. So a bit disappointing for me. But again, I don't want to take anything away from Lamont Roach, because for all we know, Tank was Tank, and Lamont Roach is just that good. Or he turned up that night, you know, and we won't know that till they fight again.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. And just quickly before we move on to the next fight, going off, what have you done for me lately? Or you don't have to go off what have you done for me lately. Does Tank beat Shakur if they were to meet next? Because obviously that's the narrative. No, a lot of people say, you know, Shakur, he runs. If he lands on Shakur, it's game over. But now the coin's kind of turned, isn't it? You're seeing people on social media saying, Tank weren't all that. He's a hype job. He cherry picks. He goes in against Shakur. Now he gets schooled to death.
Mean, I've never said Shakur or Tank are hype jobs. I've known of Shakur well before he won his Olympic medal. I saw him at a few international amateur tournaments years ago, and it was actually Troy Williamson that pointed him out to me. Watch this kid. This kid's going far, because they were part of squads, international squads. So I saw this young kid, this young flash brash American kid, and I remember Troy saying, "Watch this guy. You know, this guy's going to be really well." So for me, I'm not surprised that he's at where he's at. I always worried about how he'd take a shot from Tank. But we saw the other night that, you know, he hit Lamont Roach Jr. as clean as possible.
Yeah, he's comfortable with him, isn't he? Yeah,
never made him take a backward step.
Nah.
And I think a lot of people confuse two things a lot. Lack of punch power doesn't relate to being able to take a shot. And I think people put the two together. You're feather-fisted, so you necessarily can't hold a shot. That's absolute nonsense. And you don't necessarily have to have hands of stone to be able to put people to sleep. It's the punches that you don't see that usually knock you out, the ones that you can't prepare yourself for. I mean, you can prepare yourself for ones. Prime example, George Groves saw the shot coming that knocked him out from Carl Froch. We can all see that he sees it coming, but it still knocks him out. But it's the ones you don't see that'll knock you out. Off the back of the weekend's performance, I think that Shakur would stop Tank. I think he'd just overwhelm him. And I think we saw Tank buzzed at the weekend. He'll never admit that. We saw him buzzed. His legs didn't wobble, but you could tell by his reaction that he felt that right through to his core. I've always said that it was sort of a 50-50, and I thought Tank's power would shine through against Shakur. I think Shakur could easily outbox him now. Going on that performance, if that's what we've got from Tank and Shakur's the Shakur we've got, he took a while to get Paddy out of there, but Paddy's a tough world level guy. Yeah, he's not boxed it and mixed it at that level a lot. We'll see him up there. Based on recency bias, I think Shakur wins that fight for me.
Yeah, I tend to agree, mate. On the undercard, ladies and gentlemen, I've got here, did Puello do enough? I'm referring to Alberto Puello. He took on Sander Martin for the WBC super lightweight title. Puello was the champion, or still is the champion.
Yeah.
He won by split decision. I said last week, Joe, I thought this fight for me was one that didn't get me excited. Two southpaws. I think the best version we've seen of Sander Martin recently was that fight against Teofimo Lopez, when he possibly could have or should have won.
Yeah.
Puello was being kind of, especially this side of the pond, I'm probably going off a little bit of a tangent now, a bit like Carlos Adames. Never really heard much of him. He's on PBC cards, fights once a year. he's mid-card. He's never main event. So we don't really know anything about him. So we're just poo-pooing. We know more of Sander Martin.
Well, sorry to just interject, but let's be honest about it. This fight has been the, who hands the belt to Dalton Smith sweepstakes.
The sweepstakes, yeah.
We've been talking about, like, people have been, not myself, but people have been talking for the last 6 months that whoever wins this fight is keeping the belt warm for Dalton Smith.
I don't believe that. From what I saw on Saturday, I've got to be honest.
Saturday night.
I had it. I thought it was a close fight. I said when I spoke to Liam last week. I had a draw going into the ninth. I had it 4-4. There was you hit me, I hit you. A lot of inside work. Puello likes to get back on the ropes as well. Likes to line that right hand up. I had going into the ninth. I had it a draw. And then something like, to me, Puello, whatever his corner said to him, or because he's the champion, he knows he needs to win more rounds. The penny kind of dropped. And he was just busier. Those last 4 down the back end, Sander Martin was still doing Sander Martin things. He didn't change anything from round 1. But Puello's, the eye-catching shots were coming from Puello. Now, obviously, it's about what you're looking for, what you like, but he wasn't as busy in those first 8 rounds as he was down the back end of the stretch. Yes, he was holding times and things like that, but he was just doing more than enough to win those 3 minutes. But I saw people crying robbery and things.
No,
like, come on.
Not a robbery, that fight. It could have gone either way. The best point for me in that fight for Puello was round 8 and I think round 3. I have down on my scorecards as standout rounds. Any of the other rounds, you could have tossed a coin. Really. Sander Martin, we know what he does. Puello, we know what he does. Nobody really outshone the other. It was, like you said, you hit me, I hit you. You hit me, I hit you. So I think, split decision is a fair result for me. But I certainly don't think Dalton Smith can just turn up and beat Puello. I don't.
No. This is what I was kind of alluding to with Hamza Shiraz and Carlos Adames. We don't know anything about Carlos Adames. He was upgraded as champion. Hamza Shiraz will, blast him out, and then he'll either unify or we'll get Chris Eubank Jr. for whatever. And I was on the podcast saying I'm a massive Hamza Shiraz fan, but then go back into the archives, go and watch what Carlos Adames does. Go and watch his, bits and pieces of his amateur record. The guy can box, and a bit like Puello. Puello's quite slow, but he's clever in what he does. Yeah, he picks his shots very well. He loves that right overhand. Do you know what I mean? He uses the dark arts as well at times. I know he was upgraded, Jay, but he's a world champion for a reason. This is a hard night's work for Dalton Smith if that fight gets called. PBC again. He's a PBC guy. So
good luck.
What's going to happen? Apparently he's allowed voluntary now. So obviously you've got a guy we're going to speak about in the next fight is also a PBC champion, and you've got Isaac Cruz knocking around. There's no way Al Heyman's going to say, right, unless we'll
risk losing the belt over in the UK.
So, I don't think it happens, Jay. I don't think Dalton Smith fight happens.
No, well, I mean, was he there on Saturday night?
I didn't see him. He was supposed to be, but
that's what I'm saying. The fact that he's not there ringside speaks volumes for me. Because that tells me that they've tried to negotiate the potential fight. They've hit a brick wall. So, we'll just try lobby him, Dalton. Don't bother. Spin round. Keep your passport at home, and we'll see what happens. But, why are they going to risk losing that belt if they can keep it in-house? We know how PBC work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We know how they work. They do not go anywhere unless they are forced into it. Other than that, it'll be a PBC round robin again until they are forced into making a defense outside of the organization.
Correct.
It's not good for boxing, but it's good for PBC. But PBC are in the PBC business, aren't they? They're not in the habit of pleasing us fans or other fighters or doing favors for anybody. They don't care that Dalton Smith's a mandatory. If they can avoid him, they'll avoid him and take somebody within the PBC ranks, which is wrong, but when has boxing ever been right? It hasn't, has it? Boxing does what boxing needs to do for boxing, nobody else.
Correct. And obviously the WBC or the sanctioning bodies, for what they're worth, they're still businesses. So even if they called the Dalton Smith fight as a mandatory, but then Al Heyman and PBC, hang on a minute, we've got a unification fight here. We've got 2 belts on the line here. What out of your 3%, which makes you more money? Puello versus Gary Antuanne, all right? Or Isaac Cruz, even fan base over in the States, or Dalton Smith, who nobody's ever heard of, because they've got to come to the States because we're the champion. The WBC will probably go, hang on a minute, what does make them more money? Yeah, I'll tell you what, Dalton, you have another final eliminator. Yeah. And then, do you know what I mean? So they do make it up as they go along, but I can't see Dalton Smith being called, Jay. I really can't, mate.
I was really confident he'd get the fight after his last win. I thought, it's fairly easy to
maybe he does, but I don't.
The fact that he wasn't there, because I didn't see him.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody else has seen him. That tells me that they're not as confident as they were. And Eddie Hearn can negotiate with anybody. Eddie Hearn's got everybody's numbers on speed dial. If there's a fight to be made, he'll make it. The fact that they were talking about that fight up until about 2 weeks ago. They were talking about it. He'll be there ringside. That's the fight to make. And then we'll talk to Azim. And because even Azim said, go get the belt, and then our fight's marinating. Yeah. Bring it back. And then we'll do. They haven't never mentioned it. Eddie Hearn should have been saying the other night, right, over in States tonight, Dalton Smith will be fighting in such and such. We're planning on such and such a day in Sheffield or in the States, or we're going to bring him here. Radio silence speaks volumes for me. That'll be an in-house fight against the guy that we're probably going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah, let's jump straight over then. Punch perfect from Gary Antuanne Russell. This is, to me, I normally say performance of the weekend. And Dave's here as well, but I've jumped. To me, he was fantastic, Gary Antuanne Russell. I thought Jose Rayo Valenzuela coming off the back of the Isaac Cruz win. I backed Isaac Cruz to win that night over in LA. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Don't get me wrong, Isaac Cruz is a pressure fighter. So is Gary Antuanne as well, but it's different kind of pressure. Isaac Cruz, you can see the shots coming. You can see him loading up. Gary Antuanne Russell, Jay, on Saturday night, the gas tank, the speed, the volume, Rayo couldn't keep him off. And he didn't miss. For 12 rounds, it was a complete shut. I was just stunned. I give it
12-0.
Yeah, 100%. Well, the judges did as well, but I can't work out if I'm that surprised by Gary Antuanne Russell's performance or I'm that disappointed in Rayo. I still haven't decided yet because I thought Rayo was better than that.
I did, but I think Russell is Gary the best of the Garys? Is he the best of them all? I think there's about 3 of them. Is there? I know there's. I think they're all called Gary. I think Dad's called Gary, Granddad's called Gary, Mum's probably called Gary, to be honest. But I expected this fight to be a lot closer. And I'm on a similar vein to yourself. I don't know whether Rayo didn't turn up and just didn't box to the best of his abilities, or whether Gary Antuanne Russell was that good on the night that he just couldn't get going. Because he had an answer for everything. Yeah. You hit me, I'll hit you 3 or 4 times. You step to me, I'll pivot to the left and I'll bang you again. He just seemed to have everything: speed, skill, power. It was in and out in burst. He'd stand in the pocket and trade if needed to be. There was just no answer for anything that he had. I think he'd have beat anyone that night. That was one of them performances where you think, yeah, that's how good he is. Because I didn't think he was as good as that, but I also thought Rayo was better. I don't know whether he played into his hands by.
I thought he'd get frustrated, mate. I thought he'd frustrate the life out of Gary Russell, making him miss, because he's quite a slick boxer, isn't he, on the back foot, Rayo? But just like you say, he just couldn't keep him off all night.
Just stood in front of him and didn't. And it's easy for us to say this, but I was looking for him to shake him off and move and reset himself, and he just kept allowing him to stand in front of him and just box his head off. And by the time it got to like round 6 and 7, I thought, well, he's going to have to change something now. He's got. I'll say this again when we come over to the Crocker Donovan card, but I was waiting for him to change something. Look, you're doing the same thing round after round after round. It's obviously not working. You can see it. We can see it. Your corner can see it. I'm watching it on mute, so I don't know what they're saying to him in the corner. But from what they were saying, it didn't seem like the changed tactic. No plan to A, B, or C. A's not working. Change to B. B's not working. Be able to sort of diversify there and then on the hop. He didn't seem to do that. He just kept repeating himself. And Gary Russell didn't need to change anything, because what he was doing from round 1 worked for him right through to round 12. But like you said, he wasn't telegraphing his power, which was really surprising for me, because normally with a power shot, you'll see it come in, you see him set it, but he was setting power punches on the back foot, leaning to the left, leaning to the right. Really good, really good. I think he'd have beat 90% of his weight division that night, Saturday night.
Yeah, it was really good. And obviously we just spoke there about the Dalton Smith sweepstakes and PBC. Now obviously this was a world title fight, PBC fighter, but Gary Antuanne, we just spoke about mandatories and things like that. Gary Antuanne Russell lost his last fight against Alberto Puello. He was outboxed, and Puello got a point deducted as well. That shows how good Puello is. People think Dalton Smith smashes him. How has Gary Antuanne Russell, I know you're going to answer me, how has Gary Antuanne Russell got a world title shot on the back of a defeat? In-house PBC.
In-house PBC.
This is how it works.
I mean, that's just what they do, mate. They don't care. They make their fights for their fighters, and you know they keep titles in-house. They did it before. They've had what Spence, Porter, Tank. They've had them all at some stage, and they've all fought them within themselves. You know, within that collective of PBC fighters, and you know. Al Heyman has got backers and he's got money to be able to do that. I'm hearing the coffers are starting to run a little bit dry, hence why they've not got as many champions as what they had before. But the champions they have got, they will keep hold of them, and you know that's why Russell got the nod off the back of the defeat, which you don't ordinarily see unless it's a rematch.
Well, you can sell this now, can't you? You can sell Gary Antuanne Russell against Alberto Puello Part 2.
It's a rematch, yeah. It's a rematch. You know. That trumps Dalton Smith, like you said. You know, do we want to keep it in-house, unification, rematch? It's got a bit of a history. Or do we want to risk going over to Sheffield, decent payday, but run the risk of getting shit on the cards by the judges? Because, you know, let's be honest, we see some pretty dubious decisions every now and again for home fighters, certainly over here now in the UK. It's not, that fight's getting made next, I think. And can I be honest? I'm more interested in seeing that Part 2 than I am seeing the Dalton Smith fight, if I'm honest. I'd be more intrigued watching Puello, Gary Antuanne Russell 2, because if the Gary Russell that turned up Saturday night turns up against Puello, we might get a draw in that fight. You know, that's the type of performance that would take a very, very, very good performance to best. You know, they're the best two in the division, so you know, and the fact that they've boxed before makes it even more interesting for the likes of us as fans.
So what does he do different this time, isn't it? What does he do now? He's lost the first time. Yeah, you know, Puello had a point deducted. He was outboxed in certain aspects of that fight, and then we see Saturday night Gary Antuanne doesn't lose a round against a very similar boxer in Rayo.
I know. It's a strange one, but intriguing. Hence why I'd like to see it again.
Definitely. Is Matais the boogeyman back? I'm speaking about Subriel Matais. He was back out again on Saturday night over in his home country of Puerto Rico. He's fighting against Golazo of Venezuela. No relation to Rayo, as far as I know. Second fight out since he lost to Liam Parrow last year, losing his IBF world title. Nicknamed the boogeyman, a bit like Martin Bacoli. The tag has fallen off. He's gone and had two knockout victories since. Talking about Matais, Jay, the Liam Parrow fight, before we talk about Saturday night's fight, do you think that was literally a one-off? Because nobody was putting their hands up to fight him. Even like Jack Catcher having a voluntary, all matching fighters, didn't want to go to Puerto Rico, nothing like that. Oh no, I don't want to fight him. Parrow's gone, well, I'll have it with you. Gone in there. Yeah, I'll fight you. He's gone in there, nullified all his work, old manned him at times, outboxed him at times, and had the night of his life. I've gone and fought Richard Hitchinson, who's a completely different fighter, and got kind of schooled second half of the fight. But Matais, since then, it's just gone reverted to type. Right, come forward, throw loads of shots, loads of volume, break it down and stop you. Do you think that was an off night for him that night, or do you think Matais is world level but not world class, if that makes sense? He's a world champion.
I think he's world class. I think he is. I think he just had an off night against Parrow. I think he just struggled with his movement, obviously struggled with his power as well. I think he just didn't turn up. I think he expected to walk through him and he just come unstuck. I think it's just one of them things that happens. You know, I rate him. I really do. I've rated him before, during and after defeat. And I think Saturday night proved that, because I didn't think that fight was close. I think he battered him.
It was tough, the Mexican guy, wasn't he? It was tough. He took some punishment, the Mexican. He was fighting back as well, to be fair to him. He was game. He's typical Mexican, wasn't he?
Game, but didn't have much really. He wasn't winning that fight. There was glimpses of him getting it a foothold in, but Subriel just stepped on the gas and sort of pulled away from him. It was like a sports car racing a normal car. It might be, might stay with it off the line. Yeah. Might stay with it off the line. But once you get going, the sports car just pulls away, you know. And that's not me diminishing the guy's skill set, But I just think Subriel Matais is I think the boogeyman is back. I do. Yeah.
He's got some engine on him. We just spoke about Gary there, Gary Russell.
Barely slows down, does he?
Don't slow down. It's how do you that's why I give props to Liam Power
that can you?
No. But the old man did. He held on to him. You know, he done some of the dark arts as well. He actually done his homework on Matais, and that was kind of like a blueprint. You know.
Do you remember when Salido beat Lomachenko?
Well, that's a few years ago now. Yeah.
But that's what he did.
Similar.
Nowhere near as fast as Lomachenko. Lomachenko was the Matrix then. That's when he was, making people quit and making, just bamboozling people. That was at the beginning of it. And Salido made it look fairly easy. He just let him walk onto him, grabbed hold of him, rubbed him with the inside of his glove, used his elbows, trod on his toes, span him round, and eked out a points victory. So it can be done. Old manning people is a natural thing, using your brain. I have this discussion a lot with people at my work that I hate using the term casuals, but they're not as much a boxing fan as myself. And I'll try to, because they'll say, "Oh, did you see that at weekend? He should have just whacked him and knocked him out." And I'm like, "Yeah, if it was that simple, everybody do it." And then I try to explain to people that, look, being aggressive doesn't necessarily do you any favors in boxing. You have to use your brain. What do you mean? You just fight? No, you're not just fighting. It's not as simple as that. You've got to manipulate your footwork. You've got to get yourself into space. You've got to create an angle. You can throw a feint. You throw a feint for a reaction to get a read, and people that don't necessarily watch the sport to the level that we do don't appreciate or understand those things.
Just about blood and guts, isn't it, normally, to casual fans? Just want to see knockouts. And I understand it.
I can't go anymore because I can't stand the screaming, the knock him out, effing do this. And I'm like, I like to just watch it because I appreciate the intricacies. I'm a bit of a fight sports geek. So I can sit and watch with the sound off on my own, just appreciating a good boxing match. Some of the fights that I like are not necessarily the ones that mainstream would like because there's no knockouts, no knockdowns. I like amateur boxing, for example. I don't mind a point scoring match because I appreciate the noble art.
Sweet science, yeah.
Yeah.
So where does Matais fit into this super lightweight division now? Obviously, we've just been speaking to a couple of the fighters. He was the IBF champion. He's not with Matchroom anymore. He's with Salita Promotions. Richards and Hitchens is the IBF champion for Matchroom. George,
Wasn't that an eliminator for the IBF?
I think so. But George Kambosos now. Yeah, but George Kambosos is signed with Matchroom, and he seems to get world title shot after world title shot after losses. It's going that way again, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know, unless it's ordered.
I would like to see the rematch for the belt again. I think it would be a different fight second time round. I'm not sure. It's an eliminator, so they've got to try and make the belt. Well, they don't have to do anything, do they? The division sort of. It's getting clogged at the top because there's a lot of people deserve title shots.
Yeah, Jack Cattrall.
Jack Cattrall, for goodness sake. I feel so sorry for that guy. I remember meeting him in the crowd. He'd boxed for an area title, I think it was. Or it could have been a Celtic title or something. 2013, it was an Amir Khan undercard. 2013. We are 12 years removed from that. And he's only just really getting to the point where he's going to get, he might not get another world title shot. That guy's had the worst luck because he's one of the best over here, certainly, and deserved to be the unified, undisputed champion.
Yeah, champion as well, yeah.
And unfortunately, it just didn't work out like that for him, and here we are. He's now just suffered his second defeat or his first defeat, really, if we're honest. But it seems to have bottlenecked at the top. In truth, mate, I really don't know. I dread to think what's next for the division.
I just got this feeling, Jay, with George Kambosos Jr. because of the name, the level of opponents he's been in with. Yes, he had his best night against Teofimo Lopez. People keep calling him undisputed. It wasn't undisputed. That was a franchise belt. Haney had the real belt.
Yeah,
he's going to get. I just think he's going to get another shot. I think.
You think so?
He seems to get world title shots off backs of defeats, doesn't he?
Yeah, he sells a lot of tickets, doesn't he, back home?
Yeah,
and they do like that. And the Aussies, there are Aussies everywhere. So whenever that kid fights, he seems to get a decent crowd. And for whatever reason, like you say, he's another one that gets world title shots off the back of either crappy performances or losses. So, yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you there, mate. I think you might be right on that one. I think we might see Kambosos back in there.
And if Matais is back, mate, like we say, the boogeyman back, who's going to start putting their hands up again? Does he get frozen out again? You know, and it's obviously not with Eddie anymore. Eddie can sell, out sand to the Arabs. He's with Salita, which is on like.
Salita's not the. No. I mean, I'm not saying he's not the best promoter, but Salita normally gets his fighters on the bigger promoters card, so he works with Hearn and things like that. But yeah, I wouldn't be holding my breath if I was Matthias for anybody of great notes wanting to fight him, because it's a massive risk. They will fight him when they have to. He's the king of who needs him club, isn't he, at 140? Yeah,
so it probably will be Richardson Hitchens versus George Kambosos Jr. You've heard it first on this pod, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, you have.
Let's jump over to the UK then. Bournemouth, the National Centre, 4,000 sellout crowd. I've got a bit of the honest, Jay, the noise in that Bournemouth International Centre on Saturday night was fucking deafening. And I watched loud. I was at work, so I was trying to get a stream. Like, it was kept going on and off and that. But the support Ryan Garner had there on Saturday night, I was amazed.
Yeah,
he can shift some tickets, that boy. And it's the first time I've seen him in the past and whatnot. I saw him against Archie Sharp, Liam Dillon. I was stunned how good he was on Saturday night. Garner the Piranha eats up Jimenez. I've written there, ladies and gentlemen.
He did.
He was. The only thing he lacks it seemed to lack in that fight was punch power. It's another fight that he won every single minute of every single round. What, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he hit solid enough, doesn't he? There was, his body work was good, but I get what you mean. If he had just that little bit more, because he battered him. I mean, I've got him in notes there. I've got flawless, absolutely dominant performance.
He overwhelmed Jimenez, didn't he? Overwhelmed him.
Yeah, just too much for him. Jimenez just couldn't deal with his speed, his angles. He was chasing shadows a lot of the night. He tried, bless him, but he just wasn't good enough. He just didn't have anything to offer Garner. I'm excited to see where he goes from here, because he's now the European champion. Decent divisions, super feather. There's some big fights out there for him. I mean, there's some big, decent fights domestically. I mean, he's had some decent fights, but of a lower level. No disrespect to his opponents, but he could be in some big fights. We've got some decent super featherweights over here, or even featherweights that'll move up and fight him. Or does he get a shot at one of the champions now with him being the European? I mean, it'll put him in all the governing bodies, at least top 15, if not top 10, being the European champion. What does he get off the back of that?
But he's ranked number 15, isn't he, at the moment with the WBC, and obviously the EBU and the WBC more or less owns the EBU belt, so he'll get, when the new rankings come out,
he'll get a decent ranking, top 10 at least.
Even on that performance, I don't think he's ready for your Navarretes or your Oshaki Fosters, and obviously Sugar Nunez will probably end up being the IBF champion. So that's a step too far.
Yeah.
But as I said about the power, mate, he didn't put a foot wrong all night. He was, again, talk about gas tanks, endurance. He was, non-stop. The volume of some of these fighters we've seen at the weekend is wankable. It's so good to watch. But as he was, it wasn't so much loading up, but he was sitting down on a lot of his punches. And Jimenez, you didn't see him really get hurt at all. He was smirking back into the fight. He was showboating and fucking around. He knew he lost the fight.
But he couldn't win.
Stepped up the level. Yeah. But as he steps up the level, though, Jay, he's going to probably need a bit more pop in his hands, or he's going to have to purely rely on skill. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Even if you haven't got knockout power, I'll use my brother as an example. So my brother was a decent amateur, won the ABAs and juniors and whatnot, and then boxed for the British and was English super featherweight champion, so same division. And I remember when he turned over, I remember reading a boxing news write-up, and it said that, Femi Faintola has everything in his armoury other than punch power. And that's what did for my brother's career. He just, as he went up the levels, he wasn't strong enough to dictate a fight. Super skillful. One of the best jabs I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying that. I probably am saying that. Biased. But listen, he had all the skills, but just didn't have the power. So as he moved up the levels, he couldn't keep people off of him. And eventually he'd get overwhelmed. And as you go up through the levels, as your skill sets start to become matched by their levels, you need something to separate you from that. And that normally is power. If you've got power, you can dictate fights and get yourselves out of sticky spots. If you haven't got that, you've got to bank on your skill set, just getting you out of sticky situations. It's hard, man. It's hard, and you can't train power, can you? You've either got it or you haven't, and some people just don't have it. So for that reason, I'm a little bit skeptical of whether he will actually go all the way. But based on skills, I mean, he's got skills to burn.
Yeah, it's a good point you make there, because one of the guys, obviously doing notes, you mentioned about domestic opponents going forward. I put like Jordan Gill, Zelfa Barrett, Jazza Dickens off his last performance. But going internationally, I said it to Liam last week, somebody like a Mauricio Lara. Now, the example you made there about using the punch power, if you go and watch Lara now fighting over in Mexico and in El Salvador, these kind of places, he ain't got it anymore. As in terms of, he just seems like an opponent now. He's just
concussive knockout.
Yeah. But he's not boxing well anymore since the Leewood defeat. He seems, his body language seems disinterested. He looks a bit flabby at times, but he's relying on that punch power. He's got the punch. He's he's losing fights, but he's getting that moment and he's knocking them out.
Yeah.
So would you put Ryan Garner in with Lara? It looks good on the CV. Ex-world champion, bring him back over. There's jeopardy there with the power. I don't know. Kind of trying to matchmaking as well, but I was just kind of going off there when you said about your brother needed that punch power. Lara's the other way round. The skills don't seem to be there anymore. So it was disinteresting. He's got the
equalizer. I mean, that's a great, like you say, it's a great name on a record, but it's a hell of a risk because we know Lara can do rounds. We know he can see fights through. I'd like to see him have another big domestic fight, like you said, Jordan Gill, Zelfa Barrett, somebody like that. Zelfa's just changed trainer. He's gone to Joe Gallagher, I believe, today. Announced
I saw that. Yeah.
I don't see that as a step up. I see that as a side step for me. I don't think Gallagher offers anything. Yeah. I don't know why he's gone there, other than it being in Manchester, Bolton, wherever Gallagher trains them now. I'd like to have seen him gone completely somewhere else, Davidson or McGuigan or Sims, Smith. There's a whole host of gyms I'd have preferred to see him go to than Gallagher up the road, because I don't believe he's going to learn anything new there. But I'd like to see Garner possibly have another big domestic fight, defend his European against one of our lot over here. Maybe Jazza. Jazza would be a good fight. Jazza's coming off a good win.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That would be an easy fight to make, and I believe they could have that in Bournemouth again. He sells a lot of tickets, like you said. And Jazza sells a lot of tickets. That'd be a headline show somewhere in one of the smaller venues, somewhere down south, or even the Midlands, somewhere in between. But yeah, I'd like to see him have another tough domestic fight before we throw him in with the big dogs.
Yeah, you could kind of sell it as a change of the guard fight as well, couldn't you? But even though Jazz is mid-30s now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I can't wait to watch Garner again. I was super impressed with him at the weekend. Someone I can't get into, Jay. I've got nothing against the guy. Louis Edmondson. Press conferences, he's great. He can talk. He's decent on the mic. He looks the part, the turkey teeth, the tan. Fantastic. He's under the tutelage or management of Billy Joe Saunders. You've heard great sound bites out the gym. He's taking the piss out of people. He's a back-footed fighter, slick, classy. Get it, like all that, love it. You like sweet science.
Yeah.
But getting in the ring, the Dan Aziz fight, he was better than the Dan Aziz fight. I'll give him that. He was a bit
rubbish.
better.
It was shit.
I just can't take to him. I can't take to him.
I'm exactly the same, mate. He's just something missing for me.
He's just doing enough, isn't he? Yeah, there's something missing from his game.
He's just getting through fights, and for me, that's not enough. I don't want to see you just manipulate your way through a fight. I want to see you take a fight by the scruff of the neck and get it dealt with. Just winning fights is not enough. People want more nowadays. We live in a generation. The people like ourselves that just appreciate the sweeter science are a small few, a small percentage. A majority of fight fans and people that watch boxing want to see knockouts, people getting the nose smashed in, blood, guts, and thunder, to quote the great John Fury. Is what people want to see: blood, guts, and thunder. And the pitter-patter point scoring that I love ain't for the masses. And if he's not careful, he will end up getting sidetracked by promoters that just won't want to bring him in because people don't want to watch that. and promoters don't want to put on fights that people don't want to watch. It doesn't matter how good your skill set is. If you're not entertaining, because it is also an entertainment as well as a sport, it's a business. It's an entertainment business. They don't just put fights on for putting fights on sake. If Jack Cattrall's a prime example, that kid is world level, top tier world level. He has struggled to get fights. His fighting style's not that good on the eye for the masses.
Yeah.
So promoters have not really wanted to work with him because he don't bring much. He's not good for TV. Lewis Edmondson is not good for TV. So yeah, I'm a very similar ilk to yourself, mate. He's a tough watch. As skillful as he might be, I just want to see a bit more from him. I want to see him start throwing with a bit of spite and venom. Try taking people out. Get him out of there. You've got the skills to do it, but he just doesn't. He seems to coast through fights. That's probably a word I'd use. He coasts through fights. I don't want to see fighters coast through fights. Coast through the last few rounds if you've had a couple of knockdowns or it's been shaky, or coast towards the end if you know you can't get him out of there. But it's like he's not even trying to get him out of there. He's just doing enough to win each round.
Yeah. Yeah, you are right. So people like Shako Stevenson, Richardson, Hitchens, similar kind of style as well. You know, it's all very defensive, back-footed, but they are landing as well. There is entertainment there for somebody like me and you that appreciates footwork, creates distance and things like that, setting traps. Yeah. Louis Edmondson's not doing anything wrong in terms of point scoring. It's hit and not get hit. It's not hit and I'll wait for you to hit me.
Yeah.
But there's just something that's not clicking. He's not taking any risks, as you said there. He doesn't need to take risks because there's no jeopardy coming back at him. But obviously he's going to have to go up the levels now. He's Commonwealth British champion.
Yeah.
Whether you believe he beat Dan Aziz that night or not, they were both rubbish, to be honest. So where do we go with Louis Edmondson next? We can't have this kind of opponent he had on Saturday night. Shakan Pitters is somebody that's fighting this month. I know he's back end of 30s now, but he's fighting for a European title. Do we go there, or do we do a Spider Richards, or wait for the loser of Lyndon Arthur? Where do we go with him?
Either that, or I'd like to see him fight Whitaker or Cameron, maybe someone like that. I'd like, because that'd be a belt for them if they beat him. I think he needs another domestic test, so I'd like to see him fight Yard, Arthur, Whitaker, Cameron, Hutchinson, somebody like that.
He needs a name,
a top tier. Because Aziz, for me, didn't turn up that night. I think Aziz has sort of peaked quickly and then dropped off. His time in the limelight was short. I think he was he mid-30s anyway?
I think so.
He was
started late, didn't he?
Yeah. And that win hasn't aged well for me. I thought he lost that fight that night.
I did.
Edmondson, I thought Aziz nicked that fight by a round or two. So, yeah, I'd like to see him fight one of the guys we've named, one of the top 5, top 10 Brits. Top 5, probably. One of the top 5 Brits first. And then we'll see if he really is as good as, because I think somebody like Arthur or Cameron, not so much Cameron, because I think Cameron's going to get the dog shit beat out of him when he fights Whitaker again. I do. I know Liam. I've known Liam since he was an amateur.
Have you spoke to him since then? Have you spoke to Liam since the fight?
No. I say I know him. We don't speak really. Odd message and stuff.
I
didn't want to get involved because I picked Ben Whitaker anyway before the fight, and I just. But I think he just got lucky that night. I think Ben underestimated him, and it was what it was. Liam's a career middleweight. He's lazy. He's fighting at light heavyweight. I think Ben will be on it this time, and I think we'll see a totally different performance. I think he'll do the alley shuffle. He'll do the bolo punches. I think he'll have him. Yeah, and I think he'll beat him. But sorry, going back to, I'd like to see him fight Hutchinson. Would be a great fight. I think Edmondson versus Hutchinson would be a good fight because they're both sort of point scoring fighters. Hutchinson does have a little bit more spite and does try to get him out of there.
Yeah, that'd be a good presser as well. Fight. That'd be a good presser.
Mate,
Louis Edmondson, to be fair to him, Jay, he's he talks a good game. He's not boring at pressers. He will answer your back. He will say something in interviews.
Just don't follow it through though, does he? He don't fight like that.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because you've obviously we there's a kind of cliche, if you like, and certain fighters that are boring, when they come on the telly, you kind of get up and get yourself a beer, or you'll get yourself go and make a cup of tea. You might pop your head in if there's a knockout. you lose interest. So he does need a name next to create interest, because for opponents like this African kid at the weekend, he tried, but it was, just to sum it up, it was a tough watch. And that was on Louis Edmondson, really, even though he didn't do anything wrong. He made it a tough watch because he was, pot shotting, the point scoring, but it is what it is. We'll jump over to Belfast now. From Bournemouth. Before we go to the last controversy tonight, we talk about Spider Richards taking on Paddy McCrory. Liam was right last week. I checked Box Rec. He said he was fighting at 168. Spider Richards didn't get it at all. I think you said as well he's fought by 168 earlier on in his career, but he's been a career 175 fighter. So I kind of changed my prediction. This is a bit odd. At 34 years of age, you're going down in weight. There's a reason for it. Didn't know what, so I went for a draw, because sometimes when you don't expect Spider to turn up, he turns up. He's that kind of fighter. But again, this was a little bit of a stinker, Jay, until the actual knockout, I thought, mate.
Yeah. McCrory didn't box like his career depended on it. It was like after the first round, he thought, I can't beat this kid. And just sat there and took punches until he got stopped. He just didn't try. And with the utmost respect to him as a fighter, I'm not a fighter. I've boxed once and never again. And I can't do half of what he could do. But it didn't look like, because they were both, listen, this was a crossroads fight for them both. The loser of this fight retires pretty much, right? Maybe not so much for Richards, but it seemed as though Richards had been brought in here as a name. That's how it felt. And that was a lot of the talk from Team McCrory in the build-up. And then to just shell up for all those rounds, I was just so disappointed. I thought he'd had at least gone out on his shield, and he didn't really. Not even towards the end.
Did you think he looked nervous?
It looked like he didn't want to get knocked out in front of his own crowd. I think he was more bothered about getting chinned in front of his own crowd. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. So we've seen him get... I thought he was winning against Edgar Berlanga last year. And he got knocked out cold. Well, not cold, but he got knocked out. He got and then obviously his previous fight on one of those pro box cards, he came through a points win decision, but he was rocked badly in that fight as well. Got hurt badly. So I was, when I watched it, I thought he's very gun shy. The confidence is gone. He didn't want to get hit. He didn't want. He's quite happy to lean back on the ropes and let Spider tee off him at times. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, mate, but I tend to agree.
No, not at all. But you could see towards the middle of that fight that what you're doing here now, it's not working for you. You ain't gonna win this fight unless you change something. And he just did exactly the same thing round after round after round until Richards got him out of there. I was just disappointed in it, just but happy for Richards, because a lot of the narrative was that Richards is past it, and he's been brought in here as a homecoming for McCrory to have one last hurrah in front of his home fans. And Richards ripped that script right up and boxed. I wouldn't say he boxed well, because he didn't have to, did he? There was nothing really on offer. In terms of what's next for him, I mean, again, we've just spoke. Fight Edmondson for his belts, you know. There's some nice belts there, and it'll tell us where Edmondson is, because I think Richards is still of a certain level, certainly domestic, British European.
Oh, easy,
level.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, there's a fight there. There's a ready-made fight there for the belts.
Yeah, and that's a risky fight as well. Like I said, Craig Richards is a fighter that when you expect him to turn, I thought he'd beat Willie Hutchinson. I probably didn't do enough homework on Willie Hutchinson. He had been out. He'd been at the weight class below. I thought Spider would be too big for him, too strong. Like sometimes it's when he's detonates. Sometimes Spider he can punch when he needs to. Yeah. So then watching that, I thought, shit, is Willie that good or you that bad? So he needed to kind of make a statement as well on Saturday night. Yes, it wasn't a great performance, but like you said, he didn't need to. He got the knockout, but put him in with Louis Edmondson. Does Louis Edmondson just go on the back? Does he just go on the back foot for the whole fight? Pot shotting, point scoring, pot shotting, point scoring. Does he frustrate Spider?
I don't think Spider would allow him to do that. I think Spider's clever enough to be able to manipulate his way through. Look what he did with Bivol. I mean, that fight has aged very well for Richards.
Yeah. Yeah,
he didn't get beaten up in that fight. He lost.
No. He had success in that.
He didn't get beaten up. I know Bivol had been away for a while, and
that was during COVID, wasn't it? Was that around about COVID time?
I think it was just at the start of COVID. I think it was one of the first fights in COVID. But that fight's aged very well for Spider Richards now, some 3-4 years later. So I don't think he'd allow him to do that. I think he'd sit on him and wouldn't allow him to box at range. And he's very long for the weight as well, is Richards. Very long. So no, I'd like to see that fight.
That's why I was stunned when Boxrec said 168.
I wasn't having that myself. It didn't make any sense.
No. Right, we'll leave the last controversy to the end. Obviously, we're at the end now of the review from the weekend. I've wrote there on the screen on the banner, shocker from McDonnell, i.e. the referee, or fully justified. I'm talking about the disqualification. Obviously, we'll jump into the disqualification, talk about a little bit about the fight first. Lewis Crocker, home fights against Paddy Donovan, prospect / contender, goes on to possibly fight Boots Ennis, or there's be a vacant belt with the IBF. There's bragging rights here. There was North versus South, Orthodox versus Southpaw. A massive crowd in Belfast, screaming fans, twice as many than Bournemouth. They had everything. We've been waiting for this for a while. It's probably one of the better Irish fights that have been made in a while. Some backing Crocker, some backing Donovan. How it ended was controversial to say the least, but the actual fight as well, Jay. I mean, I backed Paddy Donovan, but it was like a bit of a coming out party for him. I thought he boxed excellent, and Lewis Crocker had no idea how to nullify his work.
Donovan boxed fantastic. I picked Crocker. I thought Donovan would be able to navigate his way through and catch him down the stretch as Donovan faded. But very similar to the fight before, and I said this on our live. We did a watch along on me, Sam, and Liam, and I said this on the live that the co-main and the main event had very similar storylines. One fighter was coming forward trying to win a fight. The other fighter was just sat in the pocket, taking shots, not doing much. The difference, I saw that McCrory didn't really look like he had a clue as to what to do to win the fight. It was just sit there and take, try a bit. Whereas with Crocker, I thought it was more of a tactic. I thought, is he waiting to try catch him down the stretch as I said it would go? I just don't think he had an answer for what Paddy looked absolutely on fire. He looked so good. I am the first to admit that I got that fight wrong. I called that fight wrong. And I knew that from about 2 or 3 rounds in. I thought, shit, this ain't going to script or my script. And I think Crocker got exposed as being one-dimensional, do I want to say? Because he didn't change anything. Is that Billy Nelson's fault? And the problem with Billy Nelson is he talks a great game, and I think sometimes he does that to the detriment of his fighters because we expect possibly a little bit too much from them. Possibly. I mean, his last 2 fights have not gone well for him, and I love Billy. He's a friend of the channel, and, we've had him on there. He's a great guy, but sometimes it's not gone well for him, has it, recently, and he's sort of bigged his fighters up, which he's going to do. He's not going to, it's
2-0 Andy Lee, isn't it?
But it's 2-0 Andy Lee. Yeah. Well, it's 1-1, but 1-1, but Crocker got the victory, but we all know it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a big one. Yeah, you're right.
It is 2-0. But no, in terms of Marcus, so look, right, the punch came well after the bell, right? The problem for me in it is that we all knew that the bell was coming. Marcus McDonnell is an experienced enough referee to know whether you hear the clacker or not. He knows approximately when the end of the round's coming, right? You start to see the corners getting ready. They lift the stools up. You see the bell guy get ready. You see the judges start shuffling the paperwork. There's things to look for, right? You watch the action. Marcus McDonnell's nowhere near that action. He should be ready to split that action the second that bell goes. Boom, you're in there. Even if it's to touch him on the shoulders, put your hands in between, grab an arm, something. Yeah. He's nowhere near. He's nowhere near until Crocker's been hit and he's down. Then McDonnell's involved. And then he sort of waves it off, tells him to go to a neutral corner, starts a count, talks to somebody else.
Started a count. Yeah, you're right. He did. He did start a count.
Started a count. It was madness. Madness. I hate to see fights like that because it's just leaves a sour taste in your mouth. It does. I know I was buzzing on the live and I won a lot of money and right, great. But ultimately, I'm a fan of boxing first. Right? Irrespective of whether I've won money or not. I'm a boxing fan first. And I don't like to see Paddy Donovan, heartbroken, sobbing, right? And Lewis Crocker, don't know what day it is because he got knocked out. Like, you know, he was on the, I don't know whether his eye socket's bust, but he's got a big cut there. He got beaten up. I just didn't like to see that because it's the arena's pissed off. Paddy's crying. Andy Lee's pissed off. Marcus McDonald's getting the blame. It's just awful to see. And then they've come out and said, we're not rematching. I know that Team Donovan have lobbied the IBF already to make the eliminate and null and void so that Crocker then doesn't get the world title fight to basically force the hand. McDonald, for me, and I said this after the fight, and Terry O'Connor as well, and there's Steve Graham, and there's Steve Gray. Sorry, there's a few. Same with the British Boxing Board of Control. It needs a shake-up, man. It needs young people in there. These refs that have been doing it for I wanted to be a ref, but I'm nearly 50 now. I ain't got time. I don't want to be reffing my first fight on my own at 61 or whatever it'd be. It's like 8 years or some shit. Do you know what I mean? They should be able to streamline the process and then monitor you for a while afterwards to get younger people involved. It's this closed guard of old white men that are in charge, and that's not a racial thing. I'm mixed race.
No, you're right. You're right.
I'm half white myself. What I meant is, I'm talking figuratively, right? We've got these older white men in control, and they're making mistakes. Marcus McDonald has done reffing since I was a kid, right? Terry O'Connor's done reffing since I was a kid. That's a long fucking time to be doing something. And when you're of an age, your reaction time isn't what it was. You know, your judgment is not what it was. I mean,
that's a good example, isn't it?
Yeah.
That Saturday night was a good example of what you just said there. The reaction time, the klaxons went 10 seconds.
One thing about Willis, the American referee, he was on top of the action. So as soon as Tank went down, he was on it. Even though he made the wrong decision.
Wrong decision,
But you're supposed to be there to separate the two, not wait 2 seconds, then jump in and start a count. Because when that bell went, if Marcus McDonald had been doing his job right, Paddy would never have been able to throw that punch because he'd have been he'd have been there to separate the two.
Do you reckon he heard the bell? Do you reckon he heard the bell? He's adamant that he didn't.
Yeah.
Mm.
He heard every other bell.
Yeah.
And that noise was raucous in every round. I believe he heard the bell. He just wanted him out of there. He'd had enough. I think he was halfway through a combination and he was throwing it regardless. But I'd said before it started, I said, I can see someone getting DQ'd. I just thought it was going to be one of them fights. Both going in with their heads. The elbow was nasty.
Yeah, what did you make of the point deductions? Constantly telling Paddy, yes, the elbows, heads, they were both from a leaning at times. There were clashes, but he seemed to have it in for just Paddy Donovan. Whether
did.
Yeah, go on.
What I could see, and I'm not, I ain't got a dog in this fight, even though I picked one of them, it was just based on what I thought I knew. I think Donovan was less subtle with his head. So Crocker was already tucked in. Leaning forward. Paddy was dipping down and coming up with it. So it looked like Paddy was being aggressive with it, whereas Crocker was already sort of tight balled up, coming forward, if that makes any sense.
It does,
so Paddy looked a little bit more aggressive with it. I get what you mean, though. He didn't give I think he gave him a warning, Crocker, for holding at one point after he'd just butted him, and I'm like, that didn't make any sense. Don't know. It did seem like it was a little bit one-sided, a little bit biased. Would never be able to prove that, but yeah, I mean, the elbow was nasty. The elbow was.
Oh, it's not. He wasn't innocent. He wasn't innocent. He was, there was use of the elbow. There was use of the head. It did seem a bit one-sided towards Lewis Crocker. And the actual punch, though, Jay, me and you watch boxing on a weekly basis, whether it's UK based, abroad. How many times do we see a punch landed after the bell and the referee just kind of say, "Right, no,
stop it."
Right, exactly, stop it. So my question to you is, if Crocker stayed on his feet after that punch, do you think the referee would have just gone to Paddy? No, don't do that. Yeah. Or do you reckon he would have gone, no, that's it. No, is it the fact that he's gone down to the floor?
Yeah, and I think Crocker heard the bell as well. Because if you see how he dropped, where he hits him, it ain't a punch that's dropping you like that. He hit him and he just dropped like he'd been shot.
Yeah, a stack of spuds, yeah.
Holding his eye. If you watch it back, he hits him and he drops like he's hit him on the chin to knock him out, but he's holding his eye, he's writhing in pain. So I think he knew. I think Crocker sort of knew what he was doing as well. I think it was a 6 and 2 for. Yeah, he wanted out of there, and I think he heard the bell and thought, "Here we go," because he starts holding his eye and stuff, and it just left a real sour taste in my mouth. We're gonna have to see that again, aren't we? To get any kind of closure.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Boots has got Staniosis. Is it next week? Coming up soon.
Yep.
That's a unification fight. I based on what I've just seen, Paddy Donovan, again, I said it was a kind of a breakout night for him. I still don't think he's ready for a Boots as of yet.
No.
So
I don't think he's ready for either of them, because I think Stanionis will give Boots a fight.
Yeah,
it's not Stanionis. No, it's not. Boots has to mind his P's and Q's against Stanionis, or he could come up unstuck. But I think Paddy had his breakout fight, but I think he needs another fight with an opponent of a certain level before he's ready to go in with the sort of the big boys, so to speak.
It depends if a Crocker wants it as well. I mean, he can sit out and wait, they said, for that mandatory shot, whether that mandatory is called or not, but how long is he prepared to wait?
I think he's going to have to
see it again. Yeah.
I think he's going to have to, though, mate. Sorry to interrupt you, but he's going to need plastic surgery, isn't he, I think?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Looked like a nasty cut. He had 2 cuts. So I think he's going to need, and I mean, they haven't said whether his eye socket's broken. It didn't look. I mean, it looked like he'd either broke a cheekbone or an eye socket, the way it was bruising and swelling. So I think Crocker's going to be out for 4 to 6 months, regardless of what happens in the mandatory situation. And then we've got to see what happens with the IBF being lobbied. Yeah, it's a mess, mate. It's an absolute mess.
Yeah. Just before we move on, I picked Paddy Donovan to win the fight. I said last week, if he sticks to his boxing, doesn't get cocky, can keep Lewis Crocker off him, he'll dance around him, which basically did happen. But to see Lewis, I know he is one-dimensional. I've said it. You said it here today. The game plan wasn't changed, but there was no volume from him either. He was just happy to just. I wouldn't say he was happy.
I said it on the live. Ones and twos.
Odd. Very odd. Even ones and twos. Looking for the single shot. That's not. I thought he'd catch Paddy, jump all over him if it hurt him, but.
Yeah,
whether there was something wrong on the night, Jay.
He caught him, didn't he, with a shovel uppercut? Don't know, mate. I don't know, but yeah, something didn't seem right. It seemed off, but Paddy might just be that good.
Yeah,
Paddy might be just that good where he didn't know what to do. And if you remember, Billy Nelson was ready to throw the towel in the round 8.
He was, yeah. He'd seen enough.
Yeah, but a mess, an absolute mess, because the right man didn't win.
Matchmaking wise now, if that's not one to make, there's another Irish, I think he's a welterweight, I'm sure he's well. I haven't got box rec in front of me. That's on a crest of a wave over the other side of the pond, and Mr. Callum Walsh. I mean, that's two guys from Republic of Ireland. Dana White's boys. Fighter. And he's looking better and better and better every time we see him. So that's a possible another Irish derby, if you like.
What a fight that'd be.
Whether those guys want to risk, well, Eddie's already risked the O with Paddy Donovan anyway, but with Dana White want to risk the O with Callum Walsh. That's another cracking fight. But
I think Dana would love the opportunity to go up against Eddie. I think we might see that fight. I think Dana will, because he wants to get into boxing, doesn't he? He's got Zuffa boxing, and he's tried the sort of hybrid crossover boxing. But in terms of real boxing, he's really, really up on Callum Walsh. So yeah, we might see that fight, man. We might see that fight. I'd love to see that fight.
So that's the review for the weekend just gone. Just quickly before I want Jay's opinions on some fights coming up this weekend. We will do a preview when Dave's back ends of the week. But what was your performance of the weekend? I said mine, to me, out of all the fights, was Gary Antuanne Russell. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and how he beat up and schooled, if you like, and done to Rayo what I didn't think he could do. So where was your performance of the week, mate?
I can't disagree with you. That or Roach. I think probably Roach for me, because it was so unexpected. Gary Antuanne Russell, we've seen glimpses of his skill set previously, so it wasn't that much of a surprise. The fact that it was so lopsided was more of a surprise for me. But I think Lamont Roach taking Tank's best, making Tank take a knee, whether it's through hair grease or for whatever reason. We'll never know, will we? Tank's never going to admit, whether he was hurt or, but the simple fact that he got a draw, Lamont Roach for me. I think the performance of the weekend is Roach Jr. for me.
Yeah, I can't argue with that either, mate. Just a couple of previews. Lauren Price versus Tasha Jonas at the weekend. It's the Royal Albert Hall, the all-female card. It's not undisputed, is it? It's the IBF, WBC, and WBA belts on the line. I know you're going to wax lyrical now about Tasha Jonas, but I did say when I mentioned Jazza Dickens and Ryan Garner, a changing of the guard. Well, you're obviously going to say no here. But could this be a possible changing of the guard? We saw Lauren Price in with McCaskill, didn't we? And that was kind of change of the guard. But McCaskill's been done for a few years. But
Lauren Price is very big to say she's natural. I would say her arms are very big. Her arms are very big for a natural fighter. Not insinuating anything. Love Tasha Jonas. I've loved her for a long time. Through the amateurs, professional, Miss GB. She's brilliant. She's one of my favourite fighters to watch. I just like the fact that, she went away, had a kid, came back, and she's older than a lot of girls that have retired. So, she's in her 40s, man, and she's still knocking girls out, and, she's had some great wins, and she's a world champion. I wouldn't say I fear for her in this fight, but I'm not as confident as I ordinarily am with her going into a fight, just for the level of opponent. But we've also got to bear in mind that Lauren Price is untested, really. She is, really. She's not fought anybody that will stand and fight with her properly. She's fought...
McCaskill's the only name, isn't it? That's the only one I could refer to at the moment.
And I mean, McCaskill's not been McCaskill for 3 or 4 years for me.
Agree, yeah.
And I think that Tasha's going to give her a fight. I'm going to pick Tasha because I'd pick Tasha if she were fighting anybody, because she's one of my favourite fighters. But realistically, Lauren has got the skill set to outpoint her. But I think the fact that it's 2-minute rounds can play into Tasha's hands, because Lauren's not going to get the time to get into a rhythm as such to outbox her. Tasha will keep her honest throughout the rounds, because Tasha can knock. She hits really hard. I think she hits harder than Price. I know we saw Price get a stoppage in her last fight, but that's probably a first or second fight of her career. Whereas Tasha's, a concussive puncher, certainly for a female as well. And I'm not being sexist before people start trolling me and calling me out on it, but statistically, women don't hit as hard as men. But Tasha hits really hard, sits down on the shots. And I think she's got something to prove, because a lot of people are writing her off in this, as you said, changing of the guard, in with the new, out with the old, etc. So I'm anticipating a really, really intense fight. Really, really intense fight.
Yeah, it's interesting you say there about the 2 minutes. It's like, will Lauren Price have to start as fast as Tasha Jonas to kind of, so she's not behind on the scorecards?
Yeah, I think that's what makes it intriguing. They're both going to have to get on it from the first round, first bell, because they can't afford to go behind, because before you know it, it's over.
Yeah, interesting. That's top of the bill on that one. Also over in Brighton, Harlem Eubank is back fighting. He's quite an inactive fighter. Harlem. He's fighting Tyron McKenna, which is a decent fight over in his hometown in Brighton. This is over 10 rounds, I think it is, main event.
Gets beat for me. I think
you reckon, yeah?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So Harlem Eubank, right? He's kind of always, well, I suppose it's from the outside looking in of the conversation between Dalton Smith and Adam Azim. Does he need a statement win here to kind of make himself still relevant on a domestic scene with those guys?
Oh, absolutely.
He's an odd one to me, Jay. Sometimes he looks $1 million. Yes, he's got the Eubank name, but he's nothing like his cousin. He's quite humble. He's quiet. He doesn't badmouth anybody. He's just a nice guy. He's completely different from his cousin. But in the last fight we saw him against Erdogan over 8 rounds, they were on the floor more than they were fighting.
It was rubbish. So, it was a tough watch.
I'm hoping for a better performance from Harlem, but you reckon Tyron McKenna's going to give it him, yeah?
I think he's going to stop him, yeah. I think Tyron will just jump on him from the opening bell, and I think unless Eubank can sort of outbox him and Tyron's, because he's retired twice, hasn't he, Tyron? He comes back for money. He's got his podcast and whatnot, and he's not completely invested in boxing anymore. It's sort of a side gig for him now, whereas previously he really had ambitions of being a champion. And I'm not you know, I don't know his mindset and I don't know what he thinks, but I don't believe that he's doing this for anything other than a payday. I don't believe he wants to have another title run for
He's 35
belts.
now, is he? 35, 36?
35, 36. But I think he has enough left to be able to give Eubank absolute nightmares. And I'm picking a stoppage, McKenna. I think he'll knock him out 6 or 7 rounds.
If that does happen, or Eubank fails to deceive anyway, or doesn't do anything sort of to make people stand on notice of anything. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Where does he go? Where does he go? Because he's not the most active fighter, is he? I don't think being with Wasserman does him any favours. So yes, he's on primetime TV on a Friday night, but
who watches Channel 5? Who watches? Come on, mate. No one watches Channel 5. I can't remember what last time it was on. It's only ever on for boxing in my house. If there's, you know, and even they're a tough watch. You know, you had the Charlie Edwards cards and Wasserman. They just don't work with other promoters, and they'd be better off working with other promoters and having their fighters fight on their shows. But they want the plaudits of, you know, terrestrial television deal. But he has to win. He has to win on Saturday. He has to win at the weekend, because if he doesn't, it's a long way back. Who's going to want to put him? No one's going to want to box him. You know, he's a Eubank in everything. Just the name. Other than that, like you say, he's not flash, he's not brash, he doesn't talk shit. So if he hasn't got the wins, then no one's going to be interested in watching him. I don't believe he sells a lot of tickets. Because if he did, he wouldn't be with Wasserman, would he? Let's be honest. If he sold a load of tickets and he's a Eubank, I mean, they'd have had him in with Ben, because he's the closest to his weight division.
Yeah, true.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Even Senior mentioned that at some point, that, you know, he's the Eubank that should be fighting Ben.
Yeah.
But I don't believe he's a draw. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Mick Conlan's also on this card. He's fighting a guy I don't think's boxed out of India, Asif Khan. What do you make of Mick Conlan now going over to Wasserman? That's a kind of a left field one.
Strange, isn't it? I don't know if he's had a fallout with his brother or what, but they've sort of parted ways, haven't they? He's retired, then he's come back. Again, Conlan's always flattered to deceive. What a boxing style he's got.
You're referring to the chin, aren't you? It's the chin.
Yeah, and he doesn't hit hard enough either. So if you can't keep him off of him, he gets hurt, because his chin is just. I mean, yeah, Lee Wood knocked him out, didn't he? It didn't look like anything of a punch really, and absolutely slept him. And then he boxed for the world title, didn't he? And like you said, as soon as he gets tagged, he just falls to pieces. And it's a shame, because on his day, he could outbox anybody. He's got skills to burn. Skills to absolute burn. But just, I mean, he'll win on Saturday night, but it's a non-entity, that fight, isn't it? Never heard of the kid.
I don't know why he's coming off 2 stoppage losses, isn't he?
Where's he going?
No,
What's he trying to do? I don't understand why he's come back. I don't get what he's trying to achieve. I don't see a pathway for him to a belt. Do you? And that's not me being trying to be disrespectful or
no.
have a dig. I'm just saying it as I see it. I just don't see a pathway for him to the belts. So I don't know why he's doing this. I don't believe he needs the money when he won't be getting paid that much, surely.
I don't know. This fight's an odd one because of the level of opponent he's up against. The guy hasn't fought really out of India. I think he's fought in China a couple of times, going back on Box Week. He's 33 now. Is this a confidence builder fight for him? 8 rounds? Is it? Maybe. You should said there, it's a Channel 5. It's not even being showcased really to anybody, because not many people are going to watch this.
No.
Oh, really? It's not the name Eubank kind of goes up in lights. So a casual fan that doesn't really follow it. So, is that Chris Eubank? I thought he's fighting Ben. Oh, we'll have a look at it. Oh, that's Harlem. I know nothing about. I'm not interested. But Mick Conlan would have already. But there again, though, Jay, Channel 5 got a habit of putting on fights after the main event, haven't they? So Mick Conlan could be that kind of fight after.
Like
but most people have a floater. Yeah, most people
gone by then. It's a strange one, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. And lastly, to end the episode, Keith Thurman, if anybody remembers him, he's back. I know this. Oh yeah, he's back on Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday lunchtime here in the UK. I just wanted your thoughts on him, mate. He's 36 now. He's been inactive for 2 years. Former world champion. He's going in against Brock Jarvis, who was knocked out and around by Liam Parrow. No shame in that. But we spoke about what's next for Mick Conlan. Where's he going? Where's Keith Thurman going at 36 years old?
I haven't got a clue. I just, whoops.
Yep.
I just don't get it, man. I just don't get another one. I don't get what Thurman's trying to achieve. Does he seriously believe that he's going to win a world title again at 36 years old? I just don't get it. I'll watch it. I expect.
Why is he in Australia as well? Is he based in Australia now? Has he changed his promotional company? Has he changed his management team? His trainer? I don't know. I
don't know any of those. I ain't got any of those answers for you because when I saw it, I sort of read past it. If that meant, oh, Thurman's coming back. Not interested because I was never massively sold on Keith Thurman when he was in his pomp. I don't believe he was ever as good as he made out. He was, you know, and had some good fights, some decent wins, but never pushed on. He was always sort of inactive, threatening to fight, wanting fights, calling out, but they never got made.
Yeah, made, yeah.
And his big shot, he got beat. And then we don't see him for years. He retires, and here he is coming out fighting a random day in Australia. I don't know. It's a cash grab. It must be. He must be getting weighed in for it. It must be. Because I can't see, again, same as Conlon, I can't see a pathway to the title. Is it at 147 or 154? 147?
Yeah, I think it is, yeah. I think he's still at...
he's not beating
he's still fighting at that weight, mate.
Who's he beating at 147? He's not beating any of the big boys, is he?
Now he's not. No.
So I don't see where he's going. It must just be a big payday. He must be getting weighed in for it. Unless he's doing it to see within himself whether he's still got it.
Yeah.
And that's why he's gone away to Australia, because he's out of the limelight, so to speak.
If you can't beat domestic. Yeah, exactly. If you can't beat a domestic level fighter, then maybe it's not for him anymore. You're right. But yeah, it's just the whole Australia thing, midweek card, main event, 10 rounds. Yeah.
Because he's not that big a draw for it to, you know, the Australians be clambering to, oh, Keith Thurman's fighting on our shores.
That's what I'm saying. I would going down that kind of that route. I would have thought he would have been someone perfect to put on a pro box card as their main event over in the States, rather than a no limit card over in Australia when he's got, like you just said, he's not a draw over there. It's just a random left field.
I don't believe he's a draw in the States either. So it's,
no.
It might be more to do with the fact of him seeing himself. What have I got left? And it's less of an ego dent if he gets beat in Australia and the back arse of nowhere on a Wednesday afternoon. Whereas if he gets beat in the States, it'll make more noise. I don't know, mate. It's just a strange one. And it's all guesswork for me. I'm just guessing because we don't know why.
More importantly, will you be tuning into it? That's the most important thing.
Depends what time it's on. If I ain't got any meetings and I'm sat in office, I might, but probably not. If I'm, I don't know, mate. Will you?
It's purely out of curiosity, isn't it? Well, I'll more than likely, I'll normally get up about lunchtime, so because I work nights, so if 9 times out of 10 I can get a stream for it. So yeah, more or less out of curiosity. I don't. The opponent, as I said, he was knocked out and around by Liam Parrow. Make what you want out of that, but yeah, see what Keith Thurman's got left. It is a strange one, mate.
We will.
Anything to add, mate, before we say goodbyes? Anything you want to shout out?
Let me have a look. I've got my list here, but I think we've covered most of it. No, mate, just shout out SW Fight Hub. You can catch us over on SW Fight Hub's YouTube channel. For anybody that's interested, I've got a small YouTube community. I think there's 60 odd. I'm trying to grow that. I'm doing a little bit more content. Jay's Fight Talks, the name of the YouTube channel. Got my X channel. I do a show with the boys over on SW Fight Hub. My own channel, I do Straight Talk with Liam Tully, one of the No Punches Pulled co-hosts. So no, just thank you for having me, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed chopping it up with you, mate. It's been great. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, mate. Guys, you just heard Jay speak there. Crack into the podcast with himself and Liam and Sam. I used to go through what I used to do, mate, is I used to listen to so many different podcasts, working nights. I'll get the time to. So one's from the UK, from the States, from America. Too much content. I was listening to too much content. And then there were certain podcasts I would listen to that I kind of related to. And I kind of listened to like one mainstream one and a couple of guys that are on Twitter as well. But the work you do with Sam and Liam is why I got in contact and wanted you on my show. It's a non-biased boxing podcast. 3 guys talking completely different attitudes,
bollocks,
opinions. But you're the main guy that says it how it is. Even the other two guys do.
I'm not as politically correct. I'm also not worried about being controversial because I'm not. Yeah. I don't do. It's difficult to explain. I'm not doing YouTube to be famous. I asked about being famous, if that makes any sense. I do it because I enjoy talking shit about fights, right? Boxing, MMA. I love fights. I watch fights from morning till night. If there's a fight on, I'm watching it. Sam is like the lead. Sam is like a host. He's the presenter, the clean cut guy. Yeah. Liam is the stat guy. So Liam is the nerd. Liam can pull a fight up from the archives. I'm the shit talker, so I'm the guy that'll say the stuff that maybe the other two not as scared or worried about saying, but they maybe don't want to say stuff. Whereas I'm not asked about a lot of the fighters I've met. I've grown up around boxing. I've been involved in boxing. So some of these people we're talking about, I've got the number in my phone, or I could ring them, or I'll say it to the face, And I don't mean that. Don't get it twisted. I don't mean like I'm some hard man. I don't mean that. But words are wind to me. If you can't
say what you think, basically, you say what you think.
Then I'm not going to bullshit. I'm a sales guy. I get paid to bullshit people at 9 to 5. When I'm talking about sports, you get it from there. It's from the heart, and it's what I mean. And I think people appreciate that. They appreciate the no frills approach. We just say it as we see it. Yeah. And the dynamic works because we're three totally different guys. I mean, I'm a lot older than the other two. Liam's young, Sam's sort of in the middle, and I'm the old head.
That's what I like.
That works as well because the dynamic of the three of us, for whatever reason, it just gels. We didn't know each other outside social media. I had a conversation with Sam. He knew Liam. We decided to try it, and we're sort of 26, 27 episodes deep. We've got a little community now. We've got people like yourselves that share our content.
Try not to miss. Yeah.
Tune in. But it's like that. The community, we all sort of help each other, don't we? We listen to your stuff, you listen to our stuff, we have you on ours. It's very supportive. I've noticed that about the fight sport community. There's not as much vitriol and venom aimed at competition because we're all competing within a space as such. But no, it works for us because, like I'm the guy that will say, and I get a lot of requests to go on people's shows because of that, because they know they're going to get raw, uncut truth from myself. But no, mate, I appreciate you having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
That's why I saved the best till last, mate. That's you put it better than I ever could. So that's basically why I do listen to Jay and the boys. But yeah, again, thanks for coming on, mate. Much appreciated. Don't be a stranger. Come back on when Dave's back as well. So
absolutely, anytime.
That's the end of episode 104. As I said at the start, if you're new to the channel, like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully we'll be back midweek to do a preview of all the fights happening at the weekend, along with our other bits and pieces, news and whatnot, prediction leagues and all that kind of jazz. So until then, have a great week, stay safe, and enjoy the bloody boxing. Jay, peace out, brother.
Take it easy, brother.